Welcome to the Bible Breakdown. It's a black man and woman in America who no longer identify as believers. This show contains adult languages, themes, and isn't meant for children. As black people, we respect the history of the black church in America, but its current state is massively abusive, and we think the Bible might be part of the problem. Listen and let us know what you think. Peace. Welcome back to another episode of the Bible Breakdown. I'm your host, Kat.
And I'm TK.
Hello, TK. Welcome back.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
Good. We do this podcast. In case this is your first episode, hi, welcome. We're just, two Negroes in the Midwest who went to private religious schools, and if you pay attention, they teach you this stuff isn't real. So we're just kind of going through the Bible because we think it might not be the document that it's branded to be, because it's always branded as the Word of God. It's this holy thing. But when you actually read it, it doesn't really hold up to that scrutiny. If you look at the history of the Bible and how it was created, it's a very man-made thing.
Yeah, I feel like I've said that so many times. It just feels, to me, it's just a simple, logical sequence. And I always say this because when I was in school, I was taught that, well, they didn't even write the Bible, the events when it even happened. And to me, that just always struck as odd, because I know that, there's debate on whether or not, like, when police question somebody at the scene of a crime, whether it even matters or not. But naturally, people
You're talking about, like, the fallacious nature of eyewitness testimony?
Yes. Because originally, it was always said, like, they question people immediately to try to, you're more proponent, or you're more apt to forget events than if they question you.
Yeah, the longer stuff goes on. Yeah.
So I just applied that logic to Bible shit, and I feel like that also would be the case. They did not write this.
Well, it's like, it's kind of twofold, because what you're talking about is like police want to question you right away because if they wait a long time, you might forget. But even when police ask right away, like, they've done these experiments where, like, in a classroom, they've done this in like law schools, where they'll have somebody run in and like maybe snatch a purse and run out. Like, they'll stage a crime, and then they'll ask everybody in the room like what the person looks like, and like right after it happened, and people give different descriptions. So our memories aren't like perfect. So even if, let's say, they wrote down whatever people were experiencing like right away, it still doesn't necessarily mean it's true. Human beings our perceptions are very flawed. So I think that's why it's a mistake to assign sort of this holy, never be wrong perspective on anything that human beings create.
Yeah, thank you for yes-anding me and saying that in a better way.
No worries. But yeah, I think before we started recording, I brought up the fact that we might be better Christians than a lot of church folk, because if you think about the actual life of Jesus Christ as it's described even in this book, like if you're using this book as canon, we're pronouncing his name wrong. Like, no one was actually calling this dude Jesus the way we pronounce it. Ancient Hebrew didn't have a J sound. It would be kind of like what Kanye named himself, Yeezus. Would have been a closer pronunciation. And I think I made 3 points. And then I always bring up the thing too, like, we're always, like, people wear crosses, but that was the symbol of the government that murdered Jesus.
You brought that up to like the last few episodes. But
yeah, I mean, it just blows my mind. And then the third one was that Jesus's message of like love and compassion has now been sort of perverted into a justification for violent capitalism. Because
We've also talked about that the last couple episodes.
well, I didn't say it as clearly, so now I'm laying it out like bump, bump, bump. Like I didn't use it in the context of we're doing a better job of Christianing than a lot of church people, because I think if you just look in, and like I said, I don't think like any man is God. Like I don't like to me it's just
Nor
thank
should you.
or woman for that matter. I don't think any human being is God or has talked to any gods. So, that's why I'm not about to, like I said, I feel like so many horrible things like people, stay tuned. We're going to be doing an episode reviewing Conclave coming up. And when you think about all the atrocities the Catholic Church has perpetrated, and people are just like, yeah, but they give out soup. So it's like, yeah, it's not it's not a even Steven kind of proposition. Like they've done some really messed up stuff throughout their entire history. There's never been a point where you can say, oh, those are the good guys. They've always pretty much been the bad guys. So, and yeah, I think it's really sad that they use the life and death of, who we're calling Jesus to justify their whole thing. But anywho, do you want to catch people up on what we talked about last week?
Last week, we discussed a lot of the same. Let's see. So last week we talked about Chronicles 1 Chronicles 7, 8, and 9. We used the New Revised Standard Version. Chronicles 7, it was said that it was primarily just a genealogical chapter that details the descendants of several tribes of Israel. So there was that. Chronicle 8, we got into more genealogical records. They talked about the tribe of Benjamin. They talked about families connected to Saul and Jonathan. And then in 1 Chronicles 9, we discussed the tribe of Judah and descendants of Judah and those who were connected to the families of David and those who served in the temple in Jerusalem. So with that being said, a lot of just things we've talked about before getting reiterated.
Yeah, it's very similar to what we covered in like Samuel and Kings. But hey, let's just go for it again. It also kind of made me think about, have you ever heard like Christians talk about the concept of kingdom marriages?
No. Kingdom marriages.
Yeah. So I was listening to a podcast the other day and a gentleman was just talking about this. I don't know if I've ever heard the term kingdom marriage, but the way he was describing it, it was kind of to me like how marriage was described when I was going to church, which is that the man is the head of the household and, he kind of runs everything and like loves his wife the way Jesus loves the church. And then the women are in charge of the children. And it's kind of like sort of like the trad wife trend that's going on right now. And to me, it's interesting because this model of marriage, I have yet to see it in the Bible. So far, I've just seen a bunch of men who are sleeping with a lot of times their family members and a bunch of concubines and slaves.
So to jump back just a little bit, because our third co-host Google here. So it looks like the term kingdom marriage was popularized by Tony Evans, a author, and I'm not exactly sure all of his credentials, but he's an he's an author and he's an evangelical pastor, speaker, and also a syndicated radio and television broadcaster in the United States.
He looks like a tiny Steve Harvey.
And so, according to the description that they have, because he wrote a book called Kingdom Marriage, but according to the description, A kingdom marriage is defined as a conventional union between a man and a woman who commit themselves to function in unison under divine authority in order to replicate God's image and expand his rule in the world through both their individual and joint callings. Whoa. What's funny is because we not only with kingdom marriage, but you've also brought up when people do those like 7-day Bible readings, or I don't know exactly what they're called, but like those type of
Bible studies.
Yeah, but you're like instructed to read particular passages over a certain amount of time or something like that. And anyway, there was a girl that I was attracted to, and she curved me, but I'm still like associated with her on social media, and so she just announced that she just finished like her 60 or 30 day or something like that study, and I was just thinking like, oh man, I fucking dodged a bullet. Like, she's beautiful, but Jesus, like that would never have worked. It just would not have worked because when you're that deep in it.
Yeah, it's just very interesting because there's, to me, what always kind of just repelled me from a lot of the at least the mega churches, because quite honestly there are a lot of like small community churches that I really admire because they are doing what Jesus was talking about, which is visiting prisoners, feeding the hungry, like taking care of each other and not chasing wealth. But I feel like a lot of these mega churches, sort of like the Tony Evans of it all, because I'm pretty sure since, he's probably got a lot of money. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of times when has this much notoriety, they're not just doing it for, the love of the game. And to me, a lot of times, it's a front fest. Like, everyone's just pretending to feel amazing and like things are amazing. And in real life, these dudes have, outside kids. A lot of times they're gay. There's a lot of real deep-seated unhappiness there that's never really addressed. There's a lot of abuse, a lot of financial abuse, physical abuse, because there's nothing in the Bible that keeps you from abusing women. In fact, none of these women, it sounds like, really had a voice in this society. So that means that if your father says you have to marry your cousin, you have to. Like, and you don't get to say no. You don't get to live your own life, and you're supposed to just be happy about it because you're, supposed to be living in God's purpose. But I don't know. To me, it just seems really, it's sad. Like, to me, I can kind of pick up on vibes, and just the amount of like Christian married dudes who have hit on me. It's kind of like, because I think most people know I'm not in church. So I guess they just feel like, it's like, well, she's a sinner, she'll put out. And it's like, no, like, I still have values just because I've examined them, and I've noticed that a lot of like my morality, it's just not in concert with what's in the Bible, mostly because of all the rape and slavery.
Meeting people who are like, oh, you're not a Christian, or you don't go to church or whatever, and that like is a turnoff for them. But then it's like most of the time, I feel like the alternative, like, they won't fuck with a guy like me because I'm not that. But most of the time, the alternative is exactly what you were saying. They end up getting with a guy who's just going to cheat on them or beat their ass or something like that. And then he's just like, oh, I'm sorry, let's pray about it to be better. Like, did you see that bullshit Cam Newton said, like, when he cheats on his girl? Boy. Like, they just take a walk and they fuck, and he, like, those are the fucking niggas bitches be getting. I'm sorry, I'm going to Thailand. Those are the fucking niggas.
So you got real on y'all.
That's the, like, and then but they'll try to tell me I'm a bad person because right. because I'm just honest. And yeah. I'm just like, man,
people don't like the truth, because honesty leads to truth, and people do not like the truth. They much prefer a fiction that flatters them. And I think that for a lot of people, the message that the creator of the universe is super into you and has a plan for you is way more attractive than, like, actually there's no evidence for that, but we can all work together to make our lives more worthwhile. And they're like, boo, I want to live forever in a paradise. It's like, okay. But yes, I see that so often, like very violent, vile men who are able to be like, well, God knows my heart. Only God can judge me. I'm wearing a lowercase T on my chain, so that means can't nothing hurt me. It's like, no, these are, and on top of everything else, especially for Black people, this is a spirituality that was very much forced upon our ancestors. Like all the sort of, and I'm not saying like the African religious traditions, those are real, but at least they're connected to a past spirituality that is much, for one, older and at least deserves to be learned about. The same way I don't think we should stop learning about Christianity or any other religion. I think it's a huge part of our culture, but believing that it's like 100% true and we should never question it. I'm never a fan of you can't ask questions.
Well, I think that leads to a lot of issues, not being able to ask questions.
It sure does. Blind obedience is not something that someone who truly loves you requires of you. Like, and I think that's what bothers me too, because everyone's like, God is love, this and this is God. And to me, I'm like, no, love doesn't
live here anymore.
It's just so sad to me, because I've been fortunate enough to be really loved in my life. And if I model, like I have kids, and if I modeled my love for my kids after the God in the Bible, then I think I'd have a terrible relationship with my children, because that means I abandon them and punish them and only come around when they're pleasing me. Like, you have to be around your kids when they're not pleasing you. Like, to me, that was what was always so. We've already read that in the Bible a couple times, where the Lord is like, hey, y'all are pissing me off with all this idol worship, so I'm gonna let you be enslaved for a couple years. It's like, whoa. Like, that's not love. That is and okay, we'll get into it later. I'm gonna start because we're going long here, but I'm gonna go ahead and jump into 1 Chronicles 10 of the New Revised Standard Version, if that's okay with you. Oh, it's short too. You got the long one. Ha ha ha. All right.
The long one on the last one.
Oh, well, that's over now. That's in the past. You bring up
I'm saying shit. You have the long one on the last one for this. Like 12.
That's what I'm saying.
What?
Oh, do I?
You're doing
Never mind. I'm just going to take that part. I'm just saying I'm doing the short one and you're doing the long one. Ha ha ha. I was making fun of you.
And I'm saying that's not totally accurate, because when you get to...
Oh, because the last one's long. Yes. Okay. Boo. Whatever. Let me have my moment. The death of Saul and his sons. Now the Philistines fought against Israel, and the men of Israel fled before the Philistines and fell slain on Mount Gilboa. The Philistines overtook Saul and his sons, and the Philistines killed Jonathan and Abinadab and Malchishua, sons of Saul. The battle pressed hard on Saul, and the archers found him, and he was wounded by the archers. Then Saul said to his armor-bearer, "Draw your sword and thrust me through it, so that these uncircumcised may not come and make sport of me." But his armor-bearer was unwilling, for he was terrified. So Saul took his own sword and fell on it. When his armor-bearer saw that Saul was dead, he also fell on his sword and died. Thus Saul died, and he and his 3 sons and all his house died together. When all the men of Israel who were in the valley saw that the army had fled and that Saul and his sons were dead, they abandoned their towns and fled, and the Philistines came and occupied them. The next day, when the Philistines came to strip the dead, they found Saul and his sons fallen on Mount Gilboa. They stripped him and took his head and his armor and sent messengers throughout the land of the Philistines to carry the good news to their idols and to their people. They put his armor on the temple of their gods, fastened his head in the temple of Dagon. But when Jabesh Gilead heard everything that the Philistines had done to Saul, all the valiant warriors got up and took away the body of Saul and the bodies of his sons and brought them to Jabesh. Then they buried their bones under the oak in Jabesh and fasted 7 days. So Saul died for his unfaithfulness. He was unfaithful to the Lord in that he did not keep the command of the Lord. Moreover, he had consulted a medium, seeking guidance, and did not seek guidance from the Lord. Therefore, the Lord put him to death and turned the kingdom over to David, son of Jesse. Ba-da-ba.
Okay, so we've heard this story before.
Mm-hmm.
Saul, God did remember, like, why did Saul kill himself? Because this is worded as if, or why did ultimately Saul die is a better question, but it's made to seem like Saul was fucking up under God's eyes. He was disobeying God.
Yeah, why did God abandon him?
Yeah.
And he lost the battle?
Yes. And so just of Saul's greatest hits of fuck ups, I guess, in the eyes of the Lord. He didn't wait for Samuel. Saul offered a sacrifice before waiting for Samuel, God's prophet. He did not destroy the Amalekites. God commanded Saul to destroy the Amalekites, but Saul spared their king. He demanded a fasting. Saul ordered his soldiers to fast without consulting a priest. He replaced Samuel. Saul replaced Samuel with Ahijah, another prophet, and then he blamed Jonathan. Saul blamed Jonathan for God's silence and tried to kill him. Okay, out of the, 5 of those, I think 4 are kind of weak.
Okay.
Because Saul offered a sacrifice before waiting for Samuel, God's prophet. Like, oh, that nigga, I don't know, he was late, whatever. Like, we're not waiting on you to start a meal. Fuck you. That's not a reason to get killed. Then also, God commanded Saul to destroy the Amalekites, but he spared their king. I mean, call me crazy, but sparing somebody, I think, is a more nobler thing and something we should all aspire to try to do.
But no, there's no higher virtue than blind obedience.
He demanded a fast. I mean, that's kind of a dick move on Saul, demanding his soldiers fast.
Well, I remember the story, though. A lot of times it's because there's a lack of resources. So sometimes it's very convenient to fast and be like, hey, I got a word from the Lord. We need to fast. Also, we don't have any food.
Yeah, I mean,
but remember in that story too, the problem was Jonathan broke the fast because he didn't know about it, and then that's why God got super mad too.
Well, I don't remember that, so thank you for that. But also just the fact that he did that without consulting I mean, what the fuck? Like, okay,
the priests are holy. Like they have. Once again, this is
it sounds like Saul was getting set up.
Well, and also you may not remember this either, but there's, I think, at least one instance, maybe more, of the Lord sending a evil spirit upon Saul and making him act out. So to me, it's like, I remember always feeling kind of bad for Saul because, for one, Saul didn't even want this job. He during his coronation, he hid. He didn't even want this job. And then once he started doing it, he tried to do his best. But, I feel like Samuel was playing him.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But, and to me, this is just, it doesn't make me super competent. Like, even in the canon of the story, let's say I was taking it at face value, this really happened. There's a real God who was talking to these, ancient people. And let's just say, what then, because I remember this was the thing I think Samuel said to Saul was that God regrets choosing you. And it's like, well, then this isn't an omnipotent God, is it? Like, if he has regrets, that means he made a mistake. So that's already kind of like, okay, maybe I shouldn't be listening to this God because sometimes he gets it wrong. And then also, like, because people, I think even before we brought up kingdom marriages, I think what stood out to me was like this idea people still want a kingdom. kingdoms are bad. Like, there's a reason why, like, we really don't have that many modern kingdoms anymore. And even if we do, they're just like figureheads. It's a bad system of government. Like, this idea that we still want this all powerful, like, God king to rule over us. It's like, that's as irritating as it is, all we have really is each other, and we have to figure out how to govern ourselves. But for whatever reason, we're like, no, we want Sky Daddy to do it.
I mean, again, it's because it's easier. It's hard to sit with your thoughts and have to process and have to come to an understanding. It's hard to fucking go to the fucking gym and do that and sweat and be uncomfortable. It's hard to sit down and write that paper when you are used to procrastinating. These are all hard things, but nobody's coming to save you. Like, you have to fucking save yourself. And which is a realization that I came to a while ago. But another thing that I want to bring up, since we were talking about kingdom marriages and all that type of stuff, because this sparked a thought for me. But the idea of me, when I was coming in here and I was speaking on my relationship in the past with the woman I was with in 2021 until like around 2023. And like, excuse me, I just had a revelation of everything that happened, regardless of how I emotionally feel, it was my fault. And I mean my fault in the sense of I kept engaging in the situation. And so like, once you do that, like anything that happens is fair game. And I would have these thoughts like, oh man, I don't like, why are these things happening to me? But I guess the point I'm making is you have to be your own change in the world for it to become
change.
Yeah, for anything to change.
That was, I can't remember who said it. It was on my Instagram. Sorry guys, I'm so deep. But yeah, this but I'm going to try to find it and put it in the notes when I'm editing this. But the quote goes something like this: the first revolution happens when you change your mind. Like, before like anything can really happen, you have to, it starts with the man in the mirror, basically. But anyway, this is just basically, like you said, this is just a recap of stuff we read earlier of how Saul went into David. To me, this doesn't sound any different than any change of power from one kingdom to another that you read about in any of the ancient kingdoms. So in Africa, Europe, Asia, this is pretty much how power transfers, and you don't need any gods to be involved. This is pretty much how it goes down. You kill the king and his sons, and then you take over.
But people, again, people want that. It seems easier. It's like you can just opt out. It's sort of like, I mean, we don't have to go down this rabbit hole, but the thing with politics, like a lot of people don't understand what's going on until after the fact.
It's too late.
And then they're like, what? I didn't know that was happening.
I didn't know that. And it's like, okay, yeah. Yeah. All right. I think I'm ready for Chronicles 11.
All right. Excuse me. First Chronicles 11. David anointed king of all Israel. Then all Israel gathered together to David at Hebron and said, see, we are your bone and flesh. For some time now, even while Saul was king, it was you who commanded the army of Israel. The Lord your God said to you, it is you who shall be shepherd of my people Israel, you who shall be ruler over my people Israel. So all the elders of Israel came to the king at Hebron, and David made a covenant with them at Hebron before the Lord. And they anointed David king over Israel according to the word of the Lord by Samuel. Jerusalem captured. David and all Israel marched to Jerusalem, that is Jebus, where the Jebus, where the Jebusites were the inhabitants of the land. The inhabitants of Jebus said to David, you will not come in here. Nevertheless, David took the stronghold of Zion. Now that the city of David had said, whoever attacks the Jebusites first shall be chief and commander. And Joab, son of Zeruiah, went up first, so he became chief. David resided in the stronghold, therefore it was called the city of David. He built the city all around from the Millo to complete circuit, or from the Millo in complete circuit. And Joab repaired the rest of the city. And David became greater and greater, for the Lord of hosts was with him. David's mighty men in their exploits. Now these are the chiefs of David's warriors who gave him strong support in his kingdom, together with all Israel to make him king, according to the word of the Lord concerning Israel. This is an account of David's mighty warriors. Jashobim, son of Hakmani, was chief of the three. He wielded his spear against 300 whom he killed at one time, and next to him among the three warriors was Eleazar, son of Dodo, the Ahohite. He was with David at past Damim when the Philistines were gathered there for battle. There was a plot of ground full of barley. Now the people had fled from the Philistines, but he and David took their stand in the middle of the plot, defended it, and killed the Philistines, and the Lord saved them by a great victory. 3 of the 30 chiefs went down to the rock to David at the cave of Adullam, while the army of Philistines were encamped in the valley of Rephaim. David was then in the stronghold, and the garrison of the Philistines was then at Bethlehem. David said longingly, "Oh, that somehow would give me water to drink from the well of Bethlehem that is by the gate." Then the 3 broke through the camp of the Philistines and drew water from the well of Bethlehem that was by the gate, and they brought it to David. But David would not drink of it. He poured it out to the Lord and said, "My God forbid that I should do this. Can I drink the blood of these men? For all the risks of their lives they brought it." Therefore he would not drink it. The warriors did these things. Now Abishai, the brother of Joab, was chief of the 30. With his spear he fought against 300 and killed them, and won a name beside the 3. He was the most renowned of the 30, and became their commander, but he did not attain to the 3. Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, was a valiant man of Kabzeel, a doer of great deeds. He struck down 2 sons of Ariel of Moab. He also went down and killed a lion in a pit on a day when snow had fallen, and he killed an Egyptian, a man of great stature, 5 cubits tall. The Egyptian had in his hand a spear like a weaver's beam, but Benaiah went against him with a staff, snatched the spear out of the Egyptian's hands, and killed him with his own spear. Such were the things Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, did, and he won a name beside the 3 warriors. He was renowned among the 30, but he did not attain to the 3, and David put him in charge of his bodyguard. The warriors of the armies were Ashel, brother of Joab, Elhanan, son of Dodo of Bethlehem, Shemoth of Harad, Heles the Pelonite, Ira, son of Ikesh of Tekoa, Abizir of Anathoth, Sibbecai the Hushathite, Eli the Ahoite, Maharai of Neptophah, Heled, son of Banan of Neptophah, Ithai, son of Ribai of Gibeath of the Benjaminites, Benaiah of Pirathon, Hirai of the Wadis of Gash, Abiel the Arbathite, Asmaveth of Baharam, Eliabha of Shalban, Hashim the Gizonite, Jonathan son of Shagi the Harite, Ahaim son of Shakar the Hadarite, Eliphaz, son of Hefer the Mecharathite, Ahijah the Pelonite, Hezro of Carmel, Narai, son of Esbai, Joel, the brother of Nathan, Midbar, son of Hagri, Zelek, the Ammonite, Naharai of Beroth, the armor bearer of Joab, son of Zerahiah, Ira the Ithrite, Gareb the Ithrite, Uriah the Hittite, Zabad, son of Ahalai, Adina, son of Shiza the Rebunite, a leader of the Rebuites, and 30 with him, Hanan, son of Makai, and Jehoshaphat the Mithonite, Uzziah the Ashtarothite, Shama and Giel, sons of Hatham the Aurorite, Jediel, son of Shimri, and his brother Joah the Tizite, Eliel the Mahavite, and Jerubai and Joshaviah, sons of Elnam, and Ithma the Moabite, Eliel and Obed, and Jaziel the Mezabite. Woo! Sheesh. This is so. I don't know, I just feel like everything we've been reading feels very barbaric and feels like not much removed from just being stone people in caves. Like, I mean, which is essentially what this is, I guess. But I don't know. And
It definitely involves stones and caves.
It's interesting to see because for as advanced as we become technologically, and we haven't really become advanced as far as our lusts for power or wanting to kill people and things like that as a collective of humans.
Agreed. We could be doing a lot better. But we still want to cling to this idea of having, like I said, Sky Daddy protecting us. While you were reading, I was just thinking about, you know, people who, really cling to this. And there's a part of me that feels a lot of compassion for them because, of course, life is really hard. So you do like kind of want help, like maybe like supernatural help. But it seems to me that for people who subscribe to, whether it be Christianity or any of the other many religions in the world, bad stuff still happens. It seems like no matter what you believe or what you subscribe to, bad stuff happens, good stuff happens. Like it doesn't seem like, it makes that much of a difference which God you subscribe to.
I feel like no, I don't know how else to say it other than say I feel like people who have to feel like they need this, there's a weakness there. But I don't mean weakness in like I am judging them for not being stronger or better. Just there's something lacking that seems to need to be fulfilled.
If I could, I mean, I've had a similar feeling, and I think what it is this yearning for perpetual childhood. Because as long as there's Sky Daddy, you don't have to be the adult.
Okay.
Because adulting is hard when you have to get up and be like, oh, look, it's on me. I got to figure this out instead of, oh, God's got it. Like being able to like, oh, I'm gonna put this at the foot of the cross. Like it creates this, and you know what? I've been guilty of this too, because when you're younger and you hear about like the hole in the ozone layer and like having to do things to protect the environment so that people are like protect the earth. I'm like, Earth's gonna be fine. What we have to do is create protect our ecosystem so that we can survive here because the earth was here long before us. And if we mess up, the earth will still be here. But breathable air, drinkable water, that's what we're in charge of. But I remember when I was learning about that, I was still a believer. So I was like, oh, well, Jesus will be back before then. Like, God said that he's not going to destroy the world again. That's what the Noah Ark story was about. Like, so there's all these things, mechanics you have in place where you don't have to take action or solve problems because God's going to solve that. And I think that's where it becomes dangerous and not just, yeah.
You know what is, it's all of what you just said. So thank you for adding that. it's also this, and we won't be talking about this time, but I think it's because in Conclave, he gives the speech about having a pope that is comfortable with uncertainty. Let him be uncertain. And I think that's kind of what I'm feeling here as far as it relates to people. People subscribe to these religions, or they get pets, they get these things to try to make them feel whole because they don't want to live in the uncertain. They're not comfortable with the uncertain. And so, and I can relate that to myself because there are other ways that I am not comfortable with the uncertain too. So it can come out in different ways, but it's just something that I've observed. And it is it's a scary feeling, and I don't have all the answers of how to overcome that, because but I guess it just comes down to, I don't know, how we are wired biologically. It's a chemical response. It's not real in a sense. It's real to us, but it's not real, I guess, in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to
It's
die.
our perception. It's just once again, like, it also creates a solution to existential dread. So, all right, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up because I gotta be at work at 10.
Oh, all right.
Okay. Chronicles 12. First Chronicle, but that was good. It's good stuff. Good stuff. David's followers in the wilderness. The following are those who came to David at Ziklag while he could not move about freely because of Saul, son of Kish. They were among the mighty warriors who helped him in war. They were archers and could shoot arrows and sling stones with either the right hand or the left. They were Benjamites, Saul's kindred. The chief was Ahiezer, then Joash, both sons of Shemash and Gibeah. Also Jeaz and Pelet, son of Azmaveth, Barakath, Zehu of Anathoth, Ismaiah of Gibeon, a warrior among the 30 and a leader over the 30, Jeremiah, Jahaziel, Johan, Joabaz of Gedura, Ezuziah, Jeremoth, Bealiah, Shemariah, Zephaliah, the Hephraite, Elkanah, Ishiah, Azriel, Jozier, Jashobeam, and Korathites, and Jolah and Zebediah, sons of Jeram of Gedar. From the Gadites, there went over to David at the stronghold in the wilderness, mighty and experienced warriors, expert with shield and spear, whose faces were like the faces of lions, who were swift as gazelles on the mountains. Elzer the chief, Obadiah the second, Elabah third, Mishman fourth, Jeremiah fifth, Adai sixth, Israel seventh, Joiah eighth, Elbeth nine, Jeremiah 10, Macavaniah 11th. These Gadites were officers of the army, the least equal to 100 and the greatest to 1,000. These are the men who crossed the Jordan in the first month. Then it was overflowing all its banks and put it to flight all those in the valleys to the east and to the west. Some Benjaminites and Jedites came to the stronghold of David. David went out to meet them and said to them, if you have come to me in friendship to help me, then my heart will be knit to you. But if you have come to betray me to my adversaries, though my hands have done no wrong, then may the God of our ancestors see and give judgment. Then the Spirit came upon Amasai, chief of the 30, and he said, we are yours, O David, and with you, O son of Jesse. Peace, peace to you, and peace to the one who helps you, for your God is the one who helps you. Then David received them and made them officers of his troops. Some of the Manassites deserted to David when he came with the Philistines for the battle against Saul, yet he did not help them, for the rulers of the Philistines took counsel and sent him away, saying he will desert his master Saul at the cost of our heads. As he went to Ziklag, these Manassites deserted to him, and Adnah, Jozabad, Jediael, Michael, Jozabad, Elihu, and Zeleathai, chiefs of the thousands in Manasseh. They helped David against the bands of raiders, for they were all warriors and commanders in the army. Indeed, from day to day, people kept coming to David to help him until there was a great army, like an army of God. David's army at Hebron. These are the numbers of the divisions of the armed troops who came to David and Hebron to turn the kingdom of Saul over to him, according to the word of the Lord. The people of Judah, bearing shield and spear, numbered 6,800 armed troops. Of the Sheminites, mighty warriors, 7,100. Of the Levites, 4,600. Jeodiah, leader of the house of Aaron, and with him 3,700. Zadok, the young warrior, and 22 commanders from his own ancestral home. Of the Benjaminites, the kindred of Saul, 3,000, of who the majority had continued to keep their allegiance to the house of Saul. Of the Ephraimites, 20,800 mighty warriors, notables in their ancestral houses. Of the half tribe of Manasseh, 18,000 who were expressly named to come and make King David king. Of Issachar, those who had understanding of the times to know what Israel ought to do, 200 chiefs and all their kindred under their command. Of Zebulun, 50,000 seasoned troops equipped for battle with all the weapons of war to help David with singleness of purpose. Of Naphtali, 1,000 commanders, with whom there were 37,000 armed with shield and spear. Of the Danites, 28,600 equipped for battle. Of Asher, 40,000 seasoned troops ready for battle. And of the Reubenites and Gadites, of the half tribe of Manasseh and beyond, from beyond the Jordan, 120,000 armed with all the weapons of war. All these warriors arrayed in battle order came to Hebron with full intent to make David king over all Israel. Likewise, all the rest of Israel were of a single mind to make David king. They were there with David for 3 days, eating and drinking, for their kindred had provided them, and also their neighbors as far away as Issachar and Zebulun and Naphtali came to bring food on donkeys, camels, mules, and oxen, abundant provisions of meals, cakes of figs, clusters of raisin, wine, oil, oxen, and sheep, for there was joy in Israel.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So David continues to reign. He gets some followers now. Why the fuck do we keep going back to these stories, man? Like, I don't.
Well, and why can't even in Chronicles can it be in order? Because even in this, Saul's still alive. We just read about the death of Saul, and in this one, he's like, why not just, just put it in order so it's easier to follow? But I'm just, far be it for me to question the Lord.
So the summarization that I found of this chapter or First Chronicles 12 is that, and I found this interesting because it says that this is the chapter highlights the unity and loyalty of the people who rallied around David, demonstrating their faith in his leadership and their commitment to the cause of Israel. And I was just thinking to myself, is that just because they fear him? Like,
No, remember he was hot.
Okay. Fine.
I mean, seriously, like that. Human beings it's the halo effect.
No, I mean that's
like
yeah.
that.
No, I know. I'm more.
He was short though. Tall was Saul. Tall, even though Saul was tall and hot, David was short and hot, and was better at killing people. Like David was like, "Yeah, you want me to kill everybody? I'll kill everybody." And Saul was kind of like, "Man, I don't know if I feel like killing everybody." I was just, I don't know. I'll save some stuff for next time because I got to get going. But what do we have in store for us next time?
Next time on the Bible Breakdown, we will be talking First Chronicles 13, 14, and 15. We'll talk about the ark brought from Kiriath Jearim. We'll talk about David being established at Jerusalem again, and we will talk about the ark brought to Jerusalem. We've talked about all this before. But
we have the Ark of the Covenant. But you know what? Since you don't remember it, the Bible at least knew that people would forget stuff. So it's like, here you go.
Yeah, but if they just, again, made it more cohesive and then did it in linear fashion, I probably would be more apt to remember.
Whatever, sinner.
Anyway, the body belongs to you. biblebreakdownpodcast@gmail.com. And if you want to support us on this channel, then reach out to us on Patreon, Bible Breakdown Podcast.
We set one up. Hopefully by the time this is published, we'll have one set up.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Yeah. So
be curious, not judgmental. Peace.